I think they got 4 teams right.
I
I love the fact that Alabama and Nick Saban went on national TV last night and begged, just basically put his hands out and said, please consider us because our losses are good. Alabama's argument was basically, we're Alabama. Remember us? We're Alabama. So you should put us in because we're better than TCU. Okay, well, I also thought you were better than Tennessee, and I thought you were better than LSU, and you lost both of those games. One of the arguments that Alabama used to try to get in the playoff was, we'll play a better game against Georgia or Michigan than TCU will. First of all, I don't know that. Secondly, Alabama's history does tell me, yeah, that might be true. But thirdly, and this was the biggest thing about this playoff, it ain't about getting the 4 teams you think is going to put on the best games. It's about getting the 4 teams that deserve to be there. And could Alabama potentially play better against Georgia and Michigan? Sure, why not? Alabama shouldn't have lost 2 games. Alabama didn't beat anybody. Alabama does not deserve under the parameters to be there. TCU deserves it. Every time TCU lined up against a ranked team, they won this year. Can't say that about Alabama. TCU went on the road and won tough games. Can't say that about Alabama. So everything about this playoff is right. And this argument that they're not 4 best teams. No, they're the 4 most deserving teams. And people want to go in their mind and say, oh, this team's better than that team. Well, why didn't they show it on the field?
Well, and that's the same people. And I do feel like the same people who are making the argument are probably also in the same camp that you and I are of expanding the playoff. But the same people are like, oh, well, the 4 best teams are X, Y, Z. This is what we need to do. Well, you're not going to figure that out in meeting rooms. And as soon as TCU lost, Alabama fans switched from trying to make the argument of why they deserve to get in over Ohio State, which I felt like was a fair argument going into the weekend, to trying to argue that they deserve to get over TCU because they're a, quote, better team. Nick Saban even threw out gambling lines. Like, well, sir, you barely covered any of the games that you played this year. So let's just not even get into that. But that's, to me, it's like, if you're sitting here making the argument that you think Alabama is a better team than TCU, you should also be in the same camp. The playoffs should be expanded, because until we expand the playoffs to have those games played, you're just having people in a meeting room decide that.
Saban saying you should put us in because we'd be favored in the games is one of the most beautiful things I've ever. You know who else you were favored against? Tennessee and LSU, and you lost both of them.
And also the games where they were heavily favored, they rarely covered. So it's like that, to use gambling and to use any type of, it was almost like he was appealing to, and I'm not saying that we're this way at Barstool, because we're not, we're very responsible, but appealing to the degenerate gambler type of side of things. It was like, what are you talking about? You weren't favored you were favored in games you lost. What does that have to do with shit?